Welcome to the Book for Playmakers YouTube channel. I'm your host, Kelvin Hunt, editor of ChopChat.com. Hope you guys are doing well. If this is your first time checking out the channel, welcome. If you've been rocking with me for a while, you already know what it is. Appreciate you guys coming back to rock with me. In this video, we're going to talk about how FSU can change the narrative surrounding the program. And when I say narrative, I'm talking about how the media is what their perception of FSU is. A couple of videos ago, talked about how there's a certain segment of media that has a particular bias regarding FSU and not looking at context and things like that. So going to delve into that along with some other things. But if you can, go ahead and like this video. You guys did a really good job of helping me do that in the last couple of videos. We want to get 100. It seems like when you get 100 likes, that really helps the video take off and reach more FSU fans. So if you could go ahead and do that for me, I would definitely appreciate it. Also, want to give a shout out to you guys that are subscribers. We finally reached 1,700 subscribers, man, just over a month or so. Which, you know, if you'd have asked me that would happen when I first started this channel, I'll be honest with you, I'd have probably been like, nah, that's probably far-fetched. But it's a shout out to you guys for supporting a little guy like me. So a shout out to you guys that are subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, do so, man. Also, set those notifications to on, so whenever I do release a video, you'll get the notification, you'll know, and you can go ahead and tune in whenever you're able to absorb the content there. So yeah, so we're going to talk about how FSU can change the narrative. So when you look at FSU, you kind of have, you have the perception of the Noles, coming in this year, they were top 10 and, had a big game with LSU to start off. And you notice that, they played LSU in a tight first half, blowed LSU out in the second half, and you saw the narrative not change, but kind of, people were like, ooh, FSU might be for real, right? You saw them move up to number 3 in the polls, and, they played Southern Miss in the second week and, basically roll those guys, cover the spread. And I think what really changed for FSU was the Boston College game. Obviously, if you're an FSU fan, the context surrounding that particular game. It's a game that you don't know if you're going to play with the hurricane looming out there. Half the team has the flu, and you're playing on the road for the first time. And by the way, none of these are excuses. Look, FSU went up there despite all of those factors and was up 31-10 going into the fourth quarter. Had a couple crazy things happen. Crazy turnover here that went for a touchdown. A crazy bounce where somebody doesn't recover a squib kick. And, that kind of changes the momentum in the game. FSU holds on to win the game, but they don't cover the spread. The spread in that game was over 3 touchdowns. FSU holds on to win by 2. And then going into the Clemson game, Clemson is a 1-point underdog at home against FSU. And of course, everyone watched the game, and that the game went into overtime. FSU wound up covering the spread in overtime. So the crazy part is FSU is 3-1 against the spread this year. And so when I talk about media having certain biases and things like that, that is part of it. And so I want to get into this. So whenever you start looking at, so Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs, everybody has them number 1, even though they haven't been playing like it, right? Georgia's actually 1-4 against the spread this year. Now, here's what you have to take into consideration. Now, obviously, FSU has played the toughest schedule out of all of these top teams: Ohio State, Washington, Michigan, Texas. So Georgia is 1-4 against the spread. Here are some of the point spreads, though. Against Tennessee Martin, they were 51-point favorites. They won 48-7. Against Ball State, they were 41.5 point favorites, and they covered the spread in that one, 145-3. Against South Carolina, they were 26-point favorites. They were losing at halftime, wound up winning by 10. They don't cover the spread. Against UAB, they're 39.5-point betting favorites, and they don't cover the spread. They win 49-21. Against Auburn, Georgia is minus 14 betting favorites, 2 touchdowns, and they're losing in the fourth quarter. And, they come back and win the game by a touchdown. So they fail to cover the spread. So Georgia, the mighty Georgia, is 1-4 against the spread. But you don't hear, media talking about them in a really negative fashion. Part of it is they have some built-up cachet because, they're back-to-back champions. But at the same time, other than Auburn, they don't cover the spread, but they win comfortably. So that's kind of what FSU is running into with that Boston College game. The perception is they barely hung on to beat a team that, they were basically 24-point betting favorites against. Okay. Let's go to Michigan. Michigan is actually 1-3-1. So 1-3 with a push against the spread this year. Against ECU in week 1, they were 35.5-point betting favorites. They didn't cover the spread. They won by 27. And when you look at week 2 against UNLV, they're 38.5-point betting favorites. They don't cover the spread. They win 35-7. Against Bowling Green, they're 41-point betting favorites. They don't cover the spread. They win 31-6. Against Rutgers, they were 24-point betting favorites. There was a push. They won 31-7. Against Nebraska, who's awful, they were 17.5-point betting favorites. They win 45-7. Let's look at Texas. Texas in week 1 against Rice. So, by the way, Texas is 3-2 against the spread. Against Rice, they were 35.5-point betting favorites. Rice, they won 37-10. Didn't cover the spread. Against Alabama, they were 7-point underdogs. They won by 10, so they covered, went outright. Against Wyoming, they're 30.5-point betting favorites. They're tied with Wyoming in the fourth quarter. They wound up winning 31-10. But because they won by a comfortable margin, the perception is, it's fine, right? Whereas if they had struggled to, if they won by 2 against Wyoming, then, maybe the media would have something to say. I doubt it, but, we'll see. We'll see. Against Baylor, they were 17.5-point betting favorites. They covered the spread. They win 38-6. Against Kansas, they were 16.5-point betting favorites, and they covered the spread. They won 40-14. All right. So let's go to Ohio State. Ohio State. Let me see if I can share this with you guys. Here we go. Ohio State is 1-3 against the spread. Against Indiana in week 1, they're 30-point betting favorites. They don't cover the spread. They win 23-3. Against Youngstown State, they're 44.5-point betting favorites. They don't cover the spread. They win 35-7. Against Western Kentucky, they are 30-point betting favorites. They cover the spread 63-10. Against Notre Dame, they're 3.5-point betting favorites. They don't cover the spread. They win by 3. Washington Huskies, they are 3-1-1 against the spread. Against Boise State, they're 14-point betting favorites. They cover the spread, win 56-19. Against Tulsa, they're 33-point betting favorites. They push, win 43-10. Against Michigan State, they're 14.5-point betting favorites. They cover the spread, win 41-7. Notice these scores, though, when they're covering 41-7, 56-19. You see how that large of a margin is? See where I'm going there? Against Cal, they're 20-point betting favorites. They cover the spread 59-32. Against Arizona, this is the game they struggled in. They were 20-point betting favorites. They don't cover the spread. They win 31-24. Okay. yeah, so let's talk about this. So FSU, they whip LSU, which that win kind of has some of the luster knocked off of it because of their loss last week against Ole Miss. But it's still an important win. The Clemson win is a big win. Obviously, it kept FSU undefeated, but people are not giving that win the credit because Clemson ultimately lost against Duke in week 1. And that was a game, like I said in a previous video, if Clemson and Duke played 10 times, Clemson wins that game probably 8 or 9 times. That was a game that Clemson just turned the ball over way too many times to be competitive, and Duke took advantage of it. But here's what FSU can do to change the narrative. So against Virginia Tech, FSU will be like a 24, 25 point betting favorite. If FSU goes out there and handles business and beats Virginia Tech something like 45-17, 45-13, anywhere in a ballpark like that, you'll see the narrative change next week. Maybe not with some guys. Some guys just have just built-in desire to hate FSU for whatever reason. You know who I'm talking about: Joe Klatt, RJ Young, a bunch of those clowns like that. They have their agendas and it's whatever. But a win like that over Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech's not a good team, but neither are any of the teams that Michigan has beaten, or a lot of the teams that Georgia has beaten. So it's not really about reality; it's just about perception. The perception is, if you beat the brakes off of somebody like Virginia Tech, or if FSU had beaten the brakes off of Boston College the way they were on their way to doing, then the perception is FSU's better than what people think they are right now, right? So you got Virginia Tech. You're going to be big. You are big betting favorites in that one. After that, you have Syracuse, who was undefeated, played competitively against Clemson, but ultimately lost by double digits. They were a 6.5 point underdog against Clemson. They wound up losing by 14 to 15, 16, something like that. Against Syracuse, they're going to be betting favorites. If they cover the spread, comfortably, that'll be 2 weeks in a row that, people are like, FSU may be getting their things together, right? FSU's had stretches where they've been dominant on offense and defense, but they haven't been able to really put it together in a full game yet. And I think if they're able to do that, because really, no team's been able to do it against a real good program. The LSU win that's why that win looked so impressive, because everyone thought LSU was a top team, they're obviously very talented, but it was a half that you saw where it was absolute domination from FSU, and that kind of put people on notice, like, woo, those boys may not be anything to play with, right? But if they do what they're supposed to do against Syracuse, and Syracuse is not, they're solid, but they're not a good team. They're an average team, I would think. I think you could say that with some faith, right? And then you have Duke. Now, obviously, Duke will probably be without Riley Leonard, so you were going to be favored in that one at home, and that's a game that you should absolutely win. If they don't have their starting quarterback, you should beat the brakes off of Duke with them playing a backup quarterback. So if you do that, now everybody's not going to, remember that Duke probably won't have their starting quarterback. And so if you handle your business there, and then you have Wake Forest, Wake Forest lost to Georgia Tech, and, they're not a good team. They're not anywhere near where they've been the last few years, which I said in the preseason. I said they lost all those super seniors and got a new quarterback and all that, we were going to see, just how good Dave Clawson is. And he is about who I thought he would be. So you should win that game, handle your business there. And then you have Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just lost to Virginia Tech. Pittsburgh is awful. Absolutely. They have their offense ranks in the hundreds when you look at FEI advanced metrics. So look, that is the next 5 games. If you go up there and handle business in those 5 games and cover the spread and show some separation the same way that these other teams have against inferior opponents, I think you'll begin to see people give FSU a little more respect in the polls. I mean, they have respect, so to speak. It doesn't feel that way because they keep dropping in the AP poll, or whatever, but they are receiving first place votes. So I think people were looking at FSU and they're like, man, they keep thinking back to that second half of LSU. And again, that was the only time you saw an offense and a defense just annihilate somebody, right? And you got to look at it this way. FSU they're in the perfect place really to begin peaking. You think of it like college basketball where, you never want to be playing your best ball in the first 2 weeks of the season. You see this with Leonard Hamilton all the time at FSU. Well, when they were good, they would kind of lose some games they shouldn't or play somebody really close. And then as the season wore on, he got his rotation down pat. Guys understood their roles better. And you saw that team, really begin to take off. And then by the time they got to the tournament, they were playing some of their best ball and, they went on their way. And then it was really all about, what the matchups are with whomever you play in the tournament. And that's kind of what FSU is looking at. So, you got through arguably the toughest part of your schedule. You had a bye week, a much needed bye week to get healthy because you had a lot of guys banged up. Jordan Travis banged up. Akeem Dent hurt. Robert Scott hurt. Mo Smith hurt. You should get some of these guys back. But even if you don't, these teams that are coming up on the schedule should not pose a big problem to you as long as you execute and do what you're supposed to do. That's why self-scouting during that bye week for the coaching staff is so big. They can look at some of the things that everybody does well, what they do poorly, try to extrapolate, hey, let's do this, let's tweak this, let's move somebody here. Hopefully some of the young guys got some reps of practice at safety. And hopefully these upcoming games against Virginia Tech and Syracuse and, Duke, Wake Forest, Pittsburgh will be opportunities for the coaching staff to continue to tweak, get guys more reps. And so by the time FSU rolls around towards the back half of that schedule, whenever, they welcome Miami to town. And look, I know everybody's on Miami and talking about, how good they look and all this. They're better than last year. Well, damn, I mean, you should be better than you were last year. They were terrible last year. They haven't played anybody. We'll know what Miami is on October 22nd after they play Clemson and UNC. If they beat both of those teams, hey, game on when you come to tally, right? But I find it difficult to believe they'll come out of that stretch of games unscathed. But we'll talk about that as we get to it. But the point is, whenever you kind of keep tweaking, you kind of keep figuring out what things are working well, and you develop some consistency on both sides of the ball, which I think getting Akeem Dent back will really help solidify that secondary. Because before he went down, I mean, they looked really good, after that first half against LSU. And a lot of the issues that are stemmed from some of the success that Clemson had, and obviously a lot of the problems that we saw against Boston College stemmed from that safety position. Look, and I'm not going to throw number 3 under the bus. We know what it is. I've already showed it on film multiple times. If we solidify that issue, The defense is, the defense is going to be just fine. Like I said, it's going to be upon the offense to ultimately determine where this team's going to go successfully wise. So that is what I'm looking for. I know people are looking for more aggression from the defense and things like that. And I don't even know if I agree with that. Because here's the thing. FSU has done a great job of getting teams to third and long. It's just getting off the field in those situations. And it's not always just a lack of aggression. It's missing a tackle, guys not filling the right gap, just sheer execution of the defensive call, guys simply doing their jobs. So you don't necessarily need more aggression. And I think that's why Adam Fuller answered the question on Monday. He was like, well, if aggression was the answer all the time, then we would blitz every play. I think it's the sheer execution of each guy doing the job. It's just like a car engine, right? If you got the oil, you got the gas, you have the spark plugs, and you got the transmission fluid and all that. And if you're missing one of those things, then obviously the engine's not going to run the way it should, right? And that's the same way a defense works. That's the same way an offense works. You need all this thing working, together to get the optimal result. So that is what I'm looking for. And then, some people will say, well, if the defense is more aggressive and they give up a big explosive play for a touchdown, everybody's saying they will be fine with it. But I promise you, that won't be the case. They will be like, Fuller sucks. The defense sucks. We need to fire everybody. And also, I'm not sure I'm fine with that because I know we say that gives opportunity or the offense more opportunities to score, but at the same time, how many times has the offense wasted opportunities where the defense has gotten off the field, right? They got Clemson off the field on their first possession, didn't score. There was the whole second half against Clemson, except for one time, offense couldn't score. Against Boston College, they only allowed like one score in the second half. Offense couldn't score. So the offense has gone like 20 some odd minutes of game time and not scored points. So I'm not sure I'm just fine with allowing the defense to give up an explosive play for a touchdown when the offense has not shown that they can consistently go down the field and score. They've done it at times in bunches, but there's also been huge gaps where there's no production whatsoever. So that's why I'm kind of let's pump the brakes on that a little bit. You could give the offense more opportunities, but there's no guarantee they're going to cash in on those opportunities. So I would much rather increase the margin for error. You may play a little bend, but not break defense. But ultimately, if you keep them out of the end zone, then you don't have to score as many points either, right? But really, it's going to come down to execution. So one other thing I want to touch on too, as far as changing the narrative on the offense, in this bye week, obviously you've had two guys be out with Robert Scott and Mo Smith. You've had guys playing at different positions. You've got new guys that are still learning the scheme. And Alex Atkins hit on that in the press conference. He's talking about, if you have Mo Smith in there, if you have Robert Scott in there, then Jeremiah Byers, Casey Roddick, and all these guys that just got there, they have some guys beside them that have some experience in the system, and then you kind of have that continuity so they can kind of lean on one another as far as, hey, look, this is what we need to do here. This is what we need to do there. They haven't had that on the offensive line, and not having that continuity through the first four games has been impactful in my opinion. So I think having a bye week and potentially being able to work Robert Scott back into the game and Mo Smith back into the game, I think that's gonna help the offensive line perform better. At the same time, you're gonna need Jordan Travis to check them into the right plays at the line of scrimmage. I know Mike Novell said sometimes there's play calls where it could have been a run, but Jordan decided to take a one-on-one in the pass game. So that is a factor that we need Jordan Travis to make better decisions at the line of scrimmage. Obviously, Jordan Travis, becoming healthier and becoming a part of the run game, that is going to help solidify the offense as well. And then lastly, the running backs. The running backs need to hit the holes when they're there. They need to have the vision to have patience and let the blocks set up, because every time since Clemson that Lawrence told Philly didn't let a block, he didn't make the right cut. The blocks were there. Trey Benson had another one where he could have bounced it outside. It was there. He didn't do it. So it's a lot of little things that have kept the offense from being consistent. Even on fourth down, there's been 2 fourth downs where FSU has gotten the first down, but then the penalty has been called for illegal formation just because the guy's not on the line of scrimmage up, half a yard. So just little things like that can just derail everything, a whole drive. So I don't think they're that far away offensively. It's just small things. Guys getting healthier, making better decisions at the line of scrimmage, and then just sheer execution. So FSU they're in a prime position to change the narrative over the next 5 weeks. All of these games are winnable. They should be betting favorites on all of them. And if they come through and handle business the way they should, play complementary football. If the offense scores, defense gets a stop, offense scores. Defense gets a stop, offense scores. Back and forth, and just feed off of one another. And if you do that, you're going to have a dominant team, a team that there's not a dominant team out there. But I think FSU has a stretch coming up here where they can kind of form that narrative and kind of let people know, hey, we are a complete team. And again, that may not be reality, but it will be perception because they just smoked the next 5 opponents, even though they may not be good, right? So that's kind of how it works with the media. It's all about the perception and not necessarily reality. So like right now, FSU is still one of the top teams, but you out here with guys talking about, FSU, would lose to some mediocre team. I think Tom Luganbill said that he would take Syracuse to beat FSU right now. What? Bro. Let's be real, man. Anyway, so again, it's all about perception, not reality. But if you go out there and take care of business, then you create your own perception and reality, right? And you set up that home game with Miami. And if Miami rolls in there undefeated, then look, you're probably going to have game day there. First time in, years that you've had that. Tally will be rocking. You're going to have a gazillion recruits at the game. And if you take care of business against Miami, man, you want to talk about changing the narrative. Then you have beaten them 3 years in a row. Crystal ball, 2 losses. All the recruits will be there. You want to talk about changing multiple narratives? That'll do it. That'll do it right there, man. But look, man, I appreciate you guys taking a moment to rock with me tonight. I know I didn't announce that I was going to record this video, but with us hitting 1,700 subscribers, I felt like I owe you guys, some content, and just wanted to get that out there in case you were kind of wondering, what's with the Noles going into this game with Virginia Tech. If I get a chance, I'm going to try to break down the Virginia Tech defense and how the FSU offense stacks up. I'm going to be leaving Friday. Me and the fam are driving down Friday here from North Carolina to Tally. So if you plan on going to the game, let me know in the comment section or hit me up on Twitter. And I'm looking to hang out with some of you guys. So until next time, make sure you like this video, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Go Noles.